to enter a theater for performance is to be inducted into a magical space, to be ushered into the sacred arena of imagination. Simon Callow. George Bernard Shaw said, "Imagination is the beginning of creation. You imagine what you desire, you will what you imagine, and at last you create what you will." Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like for you to indulge me for a moment and pretend with me. I'd like to guide your imagination. Now, I've only had one cup of coffee, so I'm going to be gentle, and I'm not going to be terribly difficult about this because you are going to imagine you're in Charlotte, but I want you to imagine you're 5 years old. It can be present day, but you're 5 years old. Now, if you're an extrovert, maybe at that age, you can easily see yourself performing for your parents, for friends. You play dress up, you pull out stuffed animals and dolls, you sing, you dance. If you're not that kind of extrovert, and the vast majority of us aren't, perhaps it was around that age that if your parents liked performing arts, they would take you down the street to Imaginon to see a play by Children's Theater. Or perhaps you, at your elementary school, had the touring company of Children's Theater come see you, the Taradiddle Players, and do a show. See yourself fascinated by the story, the costumes, and thinking, I'd like to make believe like those people. So if you're lucky, maybe your parents pick up on this and you start taking some sort of classes. Maybe you go to summer camp at Children's Theater. Maybe you get into middle school or junior high and start taking drama or choral classes. Maybe you sing in your church choir. And you really like what you're doing and you want to study it more. Perhaps you go to more camp experience at Children's Theater, perhaps get into the Young Actors Program at Theater Charlotte. You consider applying to Northwest School of the Arts. You go to a high school in Charlotte, like Charlotte Latner Myers Park, a place that has a good theater tradition and probably has an instructor that came from Children's Theater. You decide that you want to pursue theater as a college major. Well, you have no shortage of places to go within a couple of hours of here. Catawba, Davidson, Winthrop, heck, Central Piedmont. And you come to be in your early to mid-20s and you have a theater degree and you want to act, but you also want to produce and you want to direct and you want to put on shows. You don't want to just wait for roles to come available. You'd like to go out and make those roles happen for you and for other people. It's at this point that reality sets in a little bit, because you've learned that there are two major fixed costs to putting on a show as a startup theater person. The first one, if it's a work that already exists, you have to pay for the performance rights to put on that play, and if it's a musical, they're higher because of the song rights. And the second major expense is you have to find a venue to rent to perform your show. And while Charlotte is rich with theaters and arenas like this that are a few hundred seats in size, you're a startup company. You can't afford the booth and the union expenses. Oh, sure, Blumenthal has the Duke Energy Theater, and that is the affordable option, but that's still $1,500 to $2,000 for a 2-week run of shows. And you may not even have a 501c3 set up yet because you lack the funds to do so. So how do you get started to produce shows affordably? Well, you come see me. I'm Michael Ford, and I run UpStage NoDa. Ryan Deal says I'm the father of a new theater movement in Charlotte. I'm a confirmed bachelor, and I'm not sure I want to be the father of anything, but, but I appreciate his sentiment. 2 years ago, I bought an event space in NoDa at the corner of 36th and North Davidson Street and dedicated it to performing arts. The reason why stems from a question, an I wonder question. and the answer that was a belief. About 4 years ago, I was working as a special event coordinator for Boudreaux's Louisiana Kitchen, a restaurant in NoDa. They had a small event room, 900 square feet, and I was putting banquets in there, but I was also putting some performing arts shows in there. And the first group I lured there was a sketch comedy troupe based out of here called Robot Johnson. Now at that point, Robot Johnson had been around for 4 years, and it was born out of the ashes of another sketch comedy troupe called The Perch. Maybe some of you are familiar. It was around for about 12 years in Plaza Midwood. Sean Keenan was the founder of that troupe, and Robot Johnson was performing at a theater space once a month. They were having to pay 60% of their door to rent the space, doing one show. They were selling out the show, but they wanted to perform more often, and their contract was coming up at the end of 2010. I met with him. I showed him the room I had. They had a bar and a small stage on the other end, and he became excited. He said, "This is exactly what we need." So they came on board and started performing every Saturday night at the beginning of 2011. Fast forward to Christmas that year. Sean and I are having dinner together, and he said to me something that was the magic words. He said, "Michael, if you had not approached us when you did, Robot Johnson probably would have disbanded, because we wanted to perform somewhere else where we didn't have to pay that much for the privilege of doing that, that was fully embracing us being there, and we couldn't find any place." And I thought, I know how good a job you guys are doing. I think your comedy is very funny. I wonder how many other people have either abandoned projects or just not started them because they couldn't find an affordable place to play that was dedicated to having them there and wasn't just some corner stage in a loud bar when half the people in the place are watching college football on a Saturday night. 6 months later, I got the opportunity to buy the room I have now, to buy out the business that is now UpStage. UpStage is located in a 75-year-old building on the second floor. No elevator. You have to go up a flight of stairs to see what's on our stage. People figure that out once they climb to about the 15th or 16th step to get up to our space. And I started to put the word out that I was looking for shows. And I started doing that because we have an embarrassment of riches here in Charlotte as far as educational infrastructure for performing arts. There is an ever-revolving, ever-producing crop of young, talented performers in this area. And I just threw open my doors to them. And I charge next to nothing for them to perform there because we're up on the second floor of this building. I can't count on foot traffic to come into my establishment. So the show is the thing, or the shows are the thing. In the 26 months or so since I've been there, 10 different theater troupes have produced at least one play, and we've had 41 plays there in a little over 2 years. Two-thirds of those troupes have artistic directors under the age of 30. And over the next 14 months, we have 26 plays scheduled. But we're not just about theater. We have sketch comedy in Robot Johnson. We also cater to other comedy troupes. Improv Charlotte is based out of there. And I don't want to say that they're my favorite improv troupe in Charlotte. You can take Charlotte Magazine's word for that because Robot Johnson and Improv Charlotte tied for the funniest comedy troupes in Charlotte in their best of issue last year. I also inherited a great form of performing arts. That room has long been the spoken word poetry spot in Charlotte. They're going to celebrate 10 years of doing shows every Thursday night in that space come this December. And the two-time national champion slam team that's from Charlotte, that's where they're based out of. We also do shows such as burlesque and, believe it or not, we have a belly dancing show this weekend, this Saturday night, we had to add a second show because we sold the first one out already. We do a bartending competition based on Iron Chef called Iron Bartender. We do all these things because we believe in cultivating performing arts talent. Ultimately, they may leave our venue to bigger and brighter and larger pastures, but we give people the opportunity to hone their craft and develop their chops and get reps on stage. And we do so in an environment where you as an audience member can come enjoy a drink from a full bar, enjoy a meal from our restaurant partner, Boudreaux's Louisiana Kitchen, and see an evening's worth of entertainment. We want you to go home happy from the experience. And the best way I can phrase that is to swipe a quote from Alfred Hitchcock. Hitchcock was asked, what's the definition of a good movie or a good film? And he said, a good film is when the price of dinner, the theater admission, and the babysitter were worth it. That's what I hope an evening at UpStage is like. And I'm so happy to support the performers that are there. And our company is going to be growing, hopefully, in the next year or so. You're going to be hearing a lot more about us and a lot more about the troops that perform there. And I couldn't be happier because it's so much fun. Thank you all for your time. We appreciate it.